Hey guys, hoping all is well with everyone. So in this video we're going to be continuing the read-along of the Crime Traveler's Adventure Series, Book 1, Brainwashed. And last time we finished off, we completed Chapter 32, so we'll be starting today with Chapter 33. As always guys, I hope you enjoy the read today, and I hope all is well. Let's go ahead and jump into it here. So Chapter 33, The Brainwashing Ceremony. Jackknife looked like he had just come from the hospital. His skin was ashen, his lips were dry and cracking, and his bloodshot eyes were rolling around in his head. Lucas ran to him. "Come on, Jackknife," he said, shaking him. "Wake up!" Travis was glum. "It's not going to work." Nalini looked to Travis, the brainwashing expert, for an answer. "What's going on?" Travis explained. "What I've read is that sometimes they give you a medicine before the actual brainwashing ceremony." "A drug, you mean?" Lucas said. He turned to Jackknife. "Hey, buddy, what did they give you?" Jackknife moaned and drooled when he talked, little bubbles of spit popping on his lips. "About 20 minutes after I swallowed some good drink called nepenthe," he said. He stopped for a second and swallowed hard. "I felt like this tingling up my spine." His breathing was forced. "Then I couldn't remember." He dropped his head. "But I always knew you guys would come back." Astrid said, "Lucas is the one who really got us here. Thank him." Jackknife said nothing. He had already fallen back into his dead sleep. The side door to his room opened with a creak. Fearing the worst, Miss Gunerro, they all turned to see who was there. "Herve!" Astrid said. "What are you doing here? And why are you just showing up everywhere?" Herve put his finger to his lips and whispered, "Madame Gunerro thinks she can control me, that I am still a good boy. But it's not true." He pointed his cane at Jackknife. "Listen, your friend here has been drugged, so that the brainwashing works better on his brain." Astrid said, "That's what Travis just said." "Excuse me," Nalini said to Astrid. "Do you know this guy?" "Oh yeah, sorry," said Astrid. She put Gini on the bench next to Jackknife. "Herve met us when we first got to Paris. Long story, but he used to be a Karukian and now he is undoing his brainwashing and helping us." Travis suddenly seemed very interested in Herve. "How do you undo a brainwashing?" "If something can be learned, then it can be unlearned," Herve explained. "Brainwashing is essentially a way of teaching or convincing your brain over time to do something in a certain way." Travis said, "Just like when you listen to a song and it gets stuck in your head." "Exactly," said Herve. "Music is a form of brainwashing, but as always there is a good music and bad music." "I still don't understand," Astrid said. "Why would Miss Gunerro do this ceremony in a cathedral? It's so disrespectful." Herve explained. "The ceremony in the church has not worked very well, but Madame Gunerro still loves it. It's the oldest brainwashing method at the good company. It's essentially a series of chants that she says over and over for a year, until the person does exactly what she says." "Why is the success rate so low?" Travis asked. "Ah," said Herve. "This is where we have an advantage. Madame Gunerro doesn't know that bells can block a brainwashing. The nuns at the good hospitals figured this out a long time ago. This is why they often secretly give children bells, and this is why some in the good company are not brainwashed." Lucas was shocked. "Astrid's mother gave me a bell before—" "It didn't come from her mother," Herve said, correcting Lucas. "I imagine that bell came from the nuns at the good orphanage in Tierra del Fuego." Lucas looked back at Herve, for whom he felt a little sympathy. The French boy had worked hard to undo whatever it was that Miss Gunerro had done to him. Lucas asked, "What's back there in that room you just came out of?" "The 4 altar boys." "What else?" "A bench," said Herve. "Closets?" "Are the altar boy clothes in those closets?" Lucas asked. "But of course," said Herve. Lucas wanted more answers. "How many altar boys does Miss Gunerro need for this ceremony today?" 4. Lucas eyed his 3 other friends. "Let's change actors in this play," he said. "Herve, would you get us 4 robes? Quick, please." "You've got to be kidding," said Astrid. "Good idea," said Herve. He clumped on his cane and moved into the room. Moments later, he returned with 4 robes. "I can't believe you want us to change clothes again," said Astrid. In less than a minute, Nalini, Travis, Lucas, and Astrid were dressed as altar boys in hooded robes that nearly covered their faces. They all looked at one another. "Well," said Astrid, "at least it's better than the housekeeper's uniforms Lucas had us back at the good hotel." "We all look like the Grim Reaper," said Travis. Suddenly, there came a skin-against-skin slapping sound. Then another slap, followed by a baby's giggle. "The baby, Gini," said Nalini. When they turned, they saw Gini sitting in the Jackknife's lap, slapping him across the cheek with her little hand. With each slap, Jackknife puttered his lips, and Gini giggled. Nalini picked the baby up. Jackknife uttered, "What?" And then his chin slumped to his chest. Travis got in Jackknife's face. "Your name," he said, chanting in a monotone voice, "your name is Paulo Cabral. Your name is Jackknife. Say it. I am from Brazil." "I am from Brazil," moaned Jackknife. His head rolled back. Then he muttered, "Brazil, home of the best football players in the world." "That's a good sign," said Travis. "Even though," Lucas said, "they're not really the best soccer team. Argentina is." Travis joined in. "The Americans will win the next World Cup. No question about it." "Hey guys," said Astrid, "no time to argue." From the hallway they all heard the voice that no one was ready to hear. Standing in their robes, Lucas, Astrid, Nalini, and Travis bowed their heads and shielded their faces. Miss Gunerro didn't come into the room. "Herve?" she called through the closed door. "Yes, madame," said Herve. "Have the altar boys bringing me Jackknife now?" she said. "Before the prep medicine wears off." "Right away," said Herve. "And Herve?" "Yes, madame," he answered. "Call our safe house," Miss Gunerro said, "and have them send over the 4 other inductees." "Anything for you, madame," he said, rolling his eyes at the foursome. They could already hear the fading sound of Miss Gunerro's heels clomping down the hallway. Lucas asked, "Can you keep Gini here by yourself?" "But of course," Herve said. "Herve," said Travis, "is there some sort of code or math sequence to the bells, like a Fibonacci number?" "Madame Gunerro is original," said Herve. "She would never do what someone else has done before. If you want to help Jackknife, distract him with bells. That's all." Lucas and Travis helped Jackknife to his feet. Astrid led the group out of the room, and they stopped just before the altar steps in the main church. With her head down, Miss Gunerro was standing in the middle of the choir section just behind the altar. The organ began to play. "That's Bach," said Louis. "Toccata and fugue," said Nalini. Travis looked like he just realized something clever. "In D minor," he said pensively. "That's the key to the language." "Well," said Astrid, Mr. Saloti would be so impressed with all his music students. As the organ played, Miss Gunerro stood with her eyes closed. "I've read about this," Travis said. "If she's doing the ceremony by the book, she'll raise her arms in the middle of the song and then call us up to her." Miss Gunerro stood several meters away from the semicircle of kneelers and chairers. A slight fog seeped from the hem of her robe as she raised her arms. "Perfect," said Travis excitedly. "When we're on the kneelers, keep your heads down so she doesn't recognize us. Like Herve said, ring the bells to distract Jackknife and block Mrs. Gunerro's message." The organ began playing loudly, and the whole cathedral filled with church music. The tourists seemed mesmerized. Miss Gunerro signaled for the alto boys to come and join her. "This is it," said Travis. "I can't believe we're doing this." "I can't believe," Astrid added, "that she's doing this in a church. It's totally wrong." "What do you expect?" Lucas said. "It's the good company." The foursome helped Jackknife into a chair, and in the cordoned off to choir section. With their heads still bowed, Lucas and others dropped down on the kneelers. Over the even louder organ music, Miss Gunerro spoke to Jackknife. "You have been prepared to rid yourself of your past and embrace the good you have within." As Miss Gunerro spoke, Nalini distracted Jackknife by tapping him on the back with her tiny bracelet bells. "Focus on the bells," Travis whispered to Jackknife. "Not her voice." Miss Gunerro bent down slightly. "Lower your head and close your eyes and breathe in the good." Out of the corner of his eye, Lucas could see tourists trying to nose in and take pictures of the ceremony, but Miss Gunerro was too far in the back of the choir section for them to see. The head of the good company had chosen a perfect place, as usual. It was public, but no one could tell how evil her plan actually was. Miss Gunerro's breathing changed to the same tempo of the music. She began to chant like a Gregorian priestess, distant and echoing, as if surrendering to the power of her own message. Then she lowered a cloth mask over her face. With her eyes poking out 2 holes in the mask, she spoke in what Lucas thought sounded like gibberish. He couldn't understand what she was saying, which made it all more frightening. Travis winced as he worked through the translation. "I got it," he whispered to the others on the kneelers. She said, "All control is self-control." The organist tore through a series of deafening chords. Lucas, Astrid, and Nalini and Travis rang the bells next to the kneelers. Miss Gunerro didn't seem to notice the distraction. She swayed in a tight circle. Her voice was choppy as she chanted. Travis translated, "Your mind is mine all the time." Even though they were creepy, Lucas was amazed at Travis's translations. Miss Gunerro raised her head high. Her whole body wavered and wobbled as she spun herself deeper into a trance. She was the most terrifying person Lucas had ever seen. This was way more than wrong. This was scary. Mrs. Gunerro's eyes seemed to bulge out farther from the 2 holes in the mask as she nattered the next incomprehensible line. The 4 altar boys chimed, dulling Mrs. Gunerro's words. Travis again translated. "All who follow will believe. They are the willing and they are the free." Miss Gunerro swooned and swayed and looked as though she might fall from sheer exhaustion. The smoke from the dry ice in her dress completely covered her from the waist down. The top half of her body seemed to float on the dry ice cloud. The sight gave Lucas the creeps. Travis translated again. "There will be one way and only one way that is the good way." Then Miss Gunerro lifted the cloth mask to signal the end of the ceremony. Dots of sweat covered her face. Lucas and the others remained glued to the kneelers, waiting for an opportunity. Through the fog there was a strange crunching sound, slow and methodical. Miss Gunerro checked the hem of her robe, most likely to see if the dry ice was leaking again. The crinkling sound grew closer. Miss Gunerro continued with her work. She smiled at Jackknife. "You are now from Rafish Karuk," she said. Come and give me a hug. Yuck, Lucas thought. Jackknife stood obediently as the fog of dry ice began to thin slightly. The noise returned, and Lucas knew. For the new resistance, opportunity didn't always knock. Sometimes it crawled. In her crunching and crinkling diaper, Gini crawled onto the altar and behind Miss Gunerro. The baby pulled on the leash and the poodle in pink followed. Jackknife stretched out his arms to hug Miss Gunerro as Gini crawled to the edge of the remaining dry ice cloud. The poodle then stopped directly behind Miss Gunerro. Jackknife glanced back at his friends and winked. The bells had worked. As he moved to hug Miss Gunerro, Jackknife pretended to faint and fell toward her. The famed Siba Gunerro gasped. She then backward, stumbled over the poodle in pink, and toppled to the floor like a giant statue. The dry ice in her dress burst, and fog started to cover the floor and the entire choir section. Within seconds, 3 Karukians stormed through the tourists, who were now flooding the altar to get a closer look. In the middle of the dry ice fog, Jackknife gathered his friends. "Get me out of here," he said. "Now." And I'll stop the video there, ending chapter 33. But I hope you guys enjoyed the read-along today, and I hope you guys are doing well. Thank you so much for watching. Please take good care of yourselves and be safe, and I look forward to seeing you in our continuation of the Crime Travelers Adventure series. And as always, guys, take good care and see you soon. Bye.